Hi everyone! Today we're making brownies. Okay, it's keto, it's vegan, it's chocolate brownies. What more do I have to say? Let me show you how to make it. Okay, so the ingredients you need. The first thing we need is almond flour. So this is the key ingredient of this brownie. So today I'm going to use pretty finely ground almond flour. It's not extra fine, but it's pretty finely ground. So the great thing about these brownies is that any kind of almond flour will work for this recipe, from coarse ground almonds to extra fine almond flour. I've tried them all, but you do produce slightly different results. So if you use coarsely ground almond flour, you get more sort of cake-like texture. So think about it as a kind of rich chocolate cake. And the finer the almond flour gets, you get sort of chewier texture. So if you prefer firmer and chewier brownies, then use finer ground almond flour. Make sense? And if you can't find finely ground almond flour, I know many of you are grinding it yourself. So you probably buy coarsely ground almond, and I know many of you using coffee grinder, and it seems to work out pretty well. So if you can't find finely ground almond flour, you can probably grind it yourself. And since it's chocolate brownie, we need chocolate. So we need some cacao powder. So I've got some organic cacao powder here. And we also need a bar of chocolate. So I found this 100% chocolate here, dark chocolate. There's no added sugar to it. It's just a block of dark chocolate. So it doesn't have to be 100%. I say anything about 85% will work quite well. You really want that rich and dark chocolate. So you don't want to go below 85. And also make sure it's unsweetened. And as this is a really luxurious treat, I'm going to add in some chocolate chips as well. So these are dairy-free and no added sugar. So this is optional, but I like to have that sort of pocket of melted chocolate, gooey chocolate in my brownie. So I'm going to add in these chips. And alternatively, you can just get a block of chocolate like this and just break it up in small pieces. And on top of that, we'll need some baking soda. And we're also going to use stevia as sweetener. So you can use the sweetener of your choice. And we also need some fat. So we're going to use coconut oil. And to bind the whole thing together, we're going to use chia seeds. So what I've got here is ground chia seeds. It's already ground, but you can just have the whole chia seeds and ground it yourself. We're going to use it as a binding agent. This is it. This is all you need. So the first thing we're going to do is prepare the chia seeds. So we're going to do the so-called chia eggs. So we're going to create equivalent of 2 egg replacement using chia seeds. So we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of the ground chia seeds. So 1 tablespoon for 1 egg, okay? And then inside we're going to add in some water. So for 2 eggs, we're going to add in about 6 tablespoons of warm water. So just mix some hot and cold together. 2, 3, and 6. And then just use a fork or egg beater to beat it together. So this will create this really gooey mixture that's going to bind our brownies together. Okay, so mix it thoroughly, and then we're going to leave it aside. And the next thing we're going to do is to prepare the wet ingredients. So we're going to melt the chocolate and coconut oil together. So inside a bowl, I'm going to just pour in some hot water, just freshly out of the kettle. And on top of it, I'm going to take a larger bowl and sit on top of it. So this will create a hot bath underneath. And then I'm going to take my chocolate, a whole bar. So this is about 100 grams of dark chocolate. I'm going to just break it up and put in the bowl for it to melt. So make sure you don't use heat to melt your chocolate. You're going to overheat it and it's going to go bitter. So just use hot water. And inside the chocolate, we're also going to add in our coconut oil. So this is about 70 grams of coconut oil. So just put it inside. So I'm going to put it aside, just allow it to melt. Okay, so now onto the dry ingredients. So inside, I'm going to add in my almond flour. So this is 120 grams of almond flour. That goes in. And then I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of the cacao powder. So roughly 2 tablespoons of cacao powder. I always add a little bit more. I couldn't help it. So that goes in. And for the sweetener, I'm using 75 grams of granular stevia. So the amount might vary, depends on what sweetener you use. So you need to kind of try it out. And finally, we're going to add in the baking soda. So we need about half a teaspoon, roughly. So that's about half a teaspoon of baking soda. Goes in. So here's the chocolate and coconut oil mixture, and it's melting down quite nicely. And it's still got like a couple of chunks like that in there, but I'm going to just leave it in there. It doesn't matter. It adds to the character. It's home baking. So inside this mixture, we're going to add in our chia egg. So I'm going to just add in this really gooey. Just add the whole thing in there. And then just use a fork or a little egg beater. Just whisk it until the whole thing is kind of mixed together. Give it a little whisk. Okay, nice and shiny. So now we're going to add wet ingredients into the dry ones. So just pour the mixture in. I'm going to use a spatula. Scrape everything. Okay, and now just mix the whole thing together. Easy peasy. Just keep mixing until the whole thing is bind together. So I'm going to switch to my hands, just mix the whole thing. Oh, it smells so good. I can actually just eat this as it is. It smells that good. So the last thing I'm going to add in is the chocolate drops, the chips. I mean, this is optional, but hey, I want this to be the most luxurious brownies. Okay, so you end up with this pretty thick chocolate mixture, and just make sure everything is bind together. Okay, all right, so now we're going to lay it out in a baking tray. Okay, so I've got a square baking tray here. I believe this is 20 by 20 centimeters in terms of size, and it's got a bit of depth to it. So brownie will probably come out okay like this, but just to be safe, I'm going to put a layer of baking sheet on top. So I'm going to just drizzle a tiny bit of oil for it to stick. Just put a layer of baking sheet on top. So I just cut the baking sheet to fit the tray. And now we're going to transfer the mixture into the tray. So work from the center, press it down, work from the center and press outwards. Oh, those chips look so good. Okay, just spread it out to fill the tray. So if you use a smaller size of tray, it will come out thicker, obviously, so it's up to you. So the finer the almond flour you use, the firmer your mixture would be. So if you use coarsely ground almond flour, then your mixture will be slightly looser. So make sure you press the edges as well. Okay, that looks pretty good. So it's all evenly covered in terms of thickness, and I've got these little chocolate drops peeking out. Wonderful. So this is ready to go into the oven. So the brownie mixture is ready to go into the oven. So you want to preheat the oven to 180 degrees, and we're going to bake it for about 20 to 25 minutes. And there you go. So my brownie's been in the oven for about 25 minutes, and I left it to cool for about 10-15 minutes. So we need to leave it to cool off before we cut it. Okay, so I'm going to lift it off the tray. It's still quite hot at the bottom, so I want to be careful. Okay, so now I'm going to just flip it over and just take out a tray and the baking sheet at the bottom, so it came out quite clean. And then gently flip it back. Right, beautiful. So you can see it's nice and dark. You got the chocolate bits kind of peeking out. It's absolutely lovely. So now we're going to cut it into chunks. I'm going to divide it into 9 portions. That should work quite well. So use a sharp knife and just cut into it. Oh, lovely. One more from here. It's really lovely, the texture. And then the same thing vertically. You can hear the crunch as well, so it's a slight crunch to it. And then one more cut. Beautiful. Now look at that. Nice chunk of brownie. Here's the brownies. Look at that. I mean, the kitchen smells like chocolate factory. It's just amazing. All right, it's time to eat. Can't wait to have a bite. Wow. When you bite into it, it feels like cake for a second. And then you get a chewy bit. Perfect texture. So good. It's got that perfect combination of sort of cakeness, but at the same time, you've got that gooiness coming from chocolate and chocolate chips as well. So I definitely recommend that. Such a treat, and guilt-free too. So I hope you like this recipe. I mean, you can add nuts or even seeds in there, but I really like the fact that you just bite into that explosion of chocolateness. So I hope you enjoyed today's recipe and will give it a try. So follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. I post photos of the food I eat and recipes of this channel. So if you'd like to have some ideas and inspirations for your keto vegan food, then check out my Instagram. So thanks for hanging out with me today, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.